Today, we cannot imagine life without internet. A huge number of people connect to the internet every day on the phone or computers because it has become indispensable for most of us. We all know the functions and the way of using the internet today, but how did it all start?
So let's talk a little bit about how one comes to the design of the internet. This wasn't something that you woke up one morning and said, aha, I know how to build the internet. It was more a question of being forced in the right direction by the basic problem statement. So the problem was multiple packet switch nets, each of which differed in detail. The packets were different sizes. The rate at which they could move was varied depending on whether it was an optical fiber or a satellite link or mobile radio. So we had speed and size and delay variations too, because when we had to go all the way up to a satellite and down, it took a quarter of a second one way and another quarter of a second back. The round trip time on the satellite system was a half a second compared to microseconds on an Ethernet, which is a piece of coaxial cable at the time. So our problem was how to link these various nets together without changing any of the nets. And the tactic that we decided to use is called encapsulation. We had the first problem was that the networks, each of them, did not know about the others. So there was no way for someone on one network to say, send this packet, this little postcard, to another network, because you couldn't even say what the other network's name was or its identifier. So we had to invent an address space that would work across an arbitrarily large number of networks. Then we had to decide exactly what the procedures were for end-to-end communication between two computers on these different networks. So we would take these internet packets and we would encapsulate them in the format of each network. And as they went through an underlying network, they would pop out at a place we would call a gateway. It's a computer that knew how to talk to each of the two nets it was connecting. And as it got to the gateway, this internet packet was popped out of its network envelope, so to speak, and examined by the router to say, where is it supposed to go next? It would look at the internet address and say, oh, it needs to go to that gateway on another network. It would re-encapsulate this internet packet in the protocol of the next network, carry it to the next gateway, pop it out, and continue until you got to the last hop where you delivered the packet to a computer at the end.
The Advanced Research Projects Agency Network, ARPANET, was the government's computer network and the first network which implemented the Transmission Control Protocol and the Internet Protocol. The first browser, Airwise, was created in 1992, followed by Mosaic and Netscape Navigator.
Why did you buy a computer?
Well, I was very interested in the new technology and didn't want to be left behind. I don't think it's only for the youngsters at school now. I think us older ones will have to learn a lot about it.
And what do you use the computer for?
Well, for keeping household records, such as what I have in the freezer and people's telephone numbers and addresses. I use it as a word processor for my letters, which always come out perfect now. And the most exciting thing I find is the mailbox where I write to other people on the Prestel system.
And who have you written to recently? You got any examples?
Yes, I sent a message to my doctor asking for a repeat prescription, and he's left the prescription for me in the chemist.
In 1989, Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web, the universe of network-accessible information, an embodiment of human knowledge.
Yo, welcome to the World Wide Web. We're gonna take you through it, step by step. There's 1,000 pages, but you can't load them unless you hook up your serial modem. After that, you just log online and web surfing time. They got everything you could ever want, from MIDI files to your favorite font. All you gotta do is download the file, then take a nap, cause it'll take a while. You can even chat with your online buds. Doesn't matter if they Cripso Bloods. Everybody's friends, that's what I said, so let's kick it together on the World Wide Web. Build a homepage all about you, with counter, guestbook, and FAQ. There's electronic mail or email for short. Send jokes, comics, or a book report. They got online games like you wouldn't believe, like checkers. They got hypertext JPEGs, TXTs, subservient brides from overseas. News groups, web rings, mailing lists. If you can imagine it, it exists. The World Wide Web's gonna change the world, whether you're a boy or even a girl. There's more people on it every day. It's the mega-powered information superhighway.
I was the most excited, not when I got the computer, but when I went online for the first time. Think of this as the old Chrome. So this was the browser. This was the first browser of the internet, Netscape, that actually introduced the internet to millions of people, including me. I was the only kid on the block who had access to this magical thing and who had access to all this information. And that's where I fell in love with the internet. I ended up dedicating my entire life to this. I kind of like popped the hood open and started studying the engine inside, that how does this actually work, and ended up doing a PhD in computer science, focusing on the internet.
Facebook was also different at the beginning. It was launched in July 2003 as FaceMesh. The name was changed into the Facebook on 4th February 2004. It was founded by Mark Zuckerberg and his college roommate and fellow Harvard University student Eduardo Severin. Firstly, the website's membership was limited to Harvard students and later expanded to other colleges until September 2006, when everyone with a valid email address along with an age of being 13 and older could have access to Facebook.
If somebody was to put the question to you about the magnitude of what you think you've launched, how big do you think your product or your service is?
Well, it's impossible to tell. When we first launched, we were hoping for, maybe 400, 500 people. Harvard didn't have a Facebook, so that's the gap that we were trying to fill. And now we're at 100,000 people, so who knows where we're going next. We're hoping to have many more universities by the fall, hopefully over 100 or 200. And from there, we're going to launch a bunch of side applications which should keep people coming back to the site and maybe could make something cool.
What is the Facebook exactly?
It's an online directory that connects people through universities and colleges through their social networks there. You sign on, you make a profile about yourself by answering some questions, entering some information such as your concentration or major at school, contact information about phone numbers, instant messaging screen names, anything you want to tell, interests, what books you like, movies, and most importantly, who your friends are. And then you can browse around and see who people's friends are and just check out people's online identities and see how people portray themselves and just find some interesting information about people.
You can actually bring most of what's been so important and in fact epical about the internet down to the simple hyperlink. And you can think of a hyperlink as being a new type of punctuation. The old types of punctuation tell you where to stop. Hyperlink encourages you, beckons you to continue. It makes it so easy to continue to the next thing. You have to do the most minimal human action, which is go like this with your finger. I mean, it really couldn't get any less than that. And you are off into the next page, the next world, the next person. We haven't had anything like that before.
The internet, people have access to create and distribute on their own. People can share their own thoughts and feelings, experiences, talents, which I think is a great thing. Well, we wouldn't exist if people weren't creating content. I mean, that's the bottom line. I always tell people we're the stage. They're the performers. But I don't look at us as a service as trying to exploit that. What we're trying to do is just provide the opportunities that didn't exist before. Free opportunities for them to do so. If they don't want to post to YouTube, or if they have existing content they want to take down, they're always free to do so. We're not trying to control them or their content or their experience, but we're ultimately always just trying to give them access to to the platform to cost effectively distribute their content and get in front of a global audience that wasn't, I guess, aggregated before.
Look at the devolution of the way we represent ourselves online has devolved from the quirky, personalized HTML web page, homepage of the 90s, to the somewhat modular but still strange presence of a MySpace page, to the completely formatted and market-friendly presence of a Facebook page. You know, what we've done is moved from personal, human, open-ended self-expression to completely market and computer-friendly, regimented and conformist expression. And that's because we've turned the net from a venue for self-expression to a way to render ourselves up onto the market.
So, where are we today? Social networking is dominated by Facebook and Twitter right now. Facebook is really, by far the biggest social networking site today. MySpace has seen better days. It's still a very large site. It's probably going to be sold by News Corp, and hopefully we'll see a rebound from it sometime soon. And today, social networking technology is ubiquitous. We use it on our phones. It's now being baked into other applications like social games. And we're going to see it integrated into a lot more applications in the coming years. We've always had social networks. You've always had your friends. You've always had family. You've always had your coworkers. But now we're using new technology to be able to describe what those social networks are. And with that technology, now we can use it in a different way. So I think we're moving from the era where what can I do, now to the era of what can we do together.
Regardless of whether you think, social technology and the internet is good or bad, it is. This is what, the genie is out of the bottle. And I think that's an amazing thing. The social web can do more good in the world than it can do bad. And it's the choice of people and the people who are using it as to what they want to do with it. It is the most empowering generational shift that has ever happened. And I think that is what makes it so compelling and so inspiring and so much fun. When you look at the fact that you can be sitting in your pajamas on your couch and help drive, world peace, that is actually happening today. That's possible in a way that it was never possible before. And I think that that's something that is incredibly important. So, does it mean that people have shorter attention spans? Yes, but is that a bad thing? Maybe, depending on what your point of view is.
The internet has changed a lot over time. Being always connected has become a common phenomenon in a digitized society. We have access to what a few decades ago was not possible. Be prepared for what will follow.
But in terms of what it can actually enable socially, economically, and politically, I think that we should embrace and welcome social technology, not fear it.